Is everybody ready? Are you ready, Auntie?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm gonna call the meeting to order. It's 1:14 p.m., February 5th, 2018. Ben, will you do the invocation?
We come before you with our hearts and our minds open to your guidance and your wisdom that you give to us and you share of your love, God. We know that we're here to have a confirmation decision, God. Guide us through that process, that we become consistent in all that we do as a government, as a legislative branch, that we maintain a direction and a focus that will give us the honorable decisions that we need to make through this journey of this new process for the Kiowa tribe. God, you're so great, and you are so merciful, and you're so powerful and so loving, and you're so forgiving. And we thank you for the opportunities that you give to us each day that we can take a breath. And God, we thank you mostly for the fact that we can call upon you any time, and you are forgiving again, God, and merciful. And we thank you for that. Give us our guidance and wisdom again. We ask all these things in your Son, Jesus Christ's name, and as we pray together, our Father, who art in heaven,
hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil one. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Thank you, Ben. Very beautiful prayer. Rhonda, please call the roll.
Renee Plata,
Here.
Rhonda Ahady, here. Ronald Kula,
here.
Dave Gimmisaddle,
Here.
Anita Onko Johnson,
Here.
Modena Waters, here. Ben Wolf,
Here.
all present, all established.
Thank you. Do I have a motion for the agenda? If you want to take a second to look at it. I would like to also, under new business, add in actually Article 7, Section 4 as number 1, and then the confirmation hearing will begin. And I'll have Rhonda read what the Constitution says in regard to this process once we get to that point. So, any other additions?
I'm sorry, would this be during the executive session or during the
It's going to be under the, you mean?
5 or 7?
It's going to be under 5, and we're going to make Article 7, Section 4D. Actually, I think it's 4A. Section 4. I would like you to read that first, and then we will make the hearing to begin, number 2. And I would like to make a motion to that effect. Do I have a second? Ben, you're seconding it?
Yes.
Is there any more discussion on it? Ron, are you,
No, I wouldn't get it.
okay, just add in number 1, Article 7, Section 4. And then number 2 will be what's on your paperwork, Kiowa Legislature confirmation. In other words, I want the reading from the Constitution on the process first, and then we'll begin the confirmation hearing. Wilbur, could you please move these chairs out of the way, or back them up over there? Okay, so no more discussion, and we're on to call for the vote for approval of the agenda as amended, as I stated in my motion.
Okay. Renee Plata,
Yes.
Rhonda Ahady, yes. Ron Kua,
Yes.
Dave Gimasaddle,
Yes.
Anita Onko Johnson,
Yes.
Modena Waters,
Yes.
Ben Wolf.
Yes.
7 yes, 0 no, 0 abstained, 0 absent, motion carries.
Thank you, Rhonda. Okay, this is the nomination hearing for the Kiowa Tribe Treasurer, 1 PM, Kiowa Tribe Legislature. I want to just go through, I didn't know if anybody would show up. The rules of order are this. At this time, anybody who has a cell phone, please mute that cell phone. The next thing is that I would like absolute quiet, even if somebody enters, if you could help them with that, Mr. Wilbur. We need absolute quiet because of the Facebook Live, which welcome Kiowa Tribe, and that we should be respectful of the process, and that Mr. Carter here is given complete where he can be heard, and that there's no interference from anybody in this room. So the only questions that are allowed are excuse me, let me take that back. No questions are allowed by the public for Mr. George Carter here. The legislature will provide the questions on this nomination process. In addition to that, the questions will be subjective questions, and these are questions, just so you know what type of questions they are, because we have subjective questions and we have objective questions. So subjective questions are based on personal opinions, interpretations, points of view, and Mr. Carter can answer them in that manner. Sorry, I'm having trouble with my laptop here. I don't know why. Then the objective questions, also those subjective questions could be his judgment, his views, those type of questions I'd like to know. That will pretty much let you answer it in your own words. Whereas the objective questions are based on facts. They're measurable, and they're observable. So if there is a question that you did not know, or something to that matter you have no knowledge of, or you cannot answer, then you can just state that. That's okay.
Right.
Then we have a couple of polar questions, and these are questions that only require a response of yes or no. And we wouldn't need to go further with that.
Okay.
So we're going to begin the process. This is it. And is that article, is that 8?
It's 7. This is 7.
This is 7.
So,
Okay, and this is on new business. Okay, and of course, I'm the one.
it's
I thought I muted that, but obviously I didn't.
section 4. This is A, but this is C.
Okay, so he did have D up there, so that's a typo. This is section 7 under the executive branch. Section 4, powers, Article 7, Section 4, powers, and it's number D.
The chairman shall have the power to nominate a treasurer subject to confirmation by the legislature, provided that if the legislature takes no action on the nomination within 30 days of presentment, then such nominee shall be deemed confirmed. The treasurer shall act at the direction of the chairman and shall safeguard and be responsible for the financial assets and financial practices of the tribe. The treasurer shall be bonded in a sufficient amount to protect the financial assets of the tribe.
Thank you, Rhonda. So the questioning will begin. And how we're going to do this is, because we don't want it to be overwhelming, but I would ask the legislators for 2 questions. If you don't have 2 questions, or you do have 2 questions, the first round can be 2 questions. And you can choose whether you want to make 1 or 2 questions. And then the final go around will be 1 question, if you choose to make another question. We've gone over all these questions, so I do not want to get confusing on that process. Do you understand that,
Yes.
Mr. Carter? Good luck.
Thank you.
We plan to make an unbiased decision,
Good.
and we want to do that in all fairness to you.
I appreciate it.
Based on your resume, which we have, and based on the questions that we feel are important from this legislative branch. In saying that, Ms. Modena, please proceed.
Good morning, Mr. Carter.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Thank you.
It's good to see you. My first question is, can you tell us how the chart of accounts would be used in finance?
Chart of accounts is the breakdown of assets, liabilities, expenses, revenues, and within those general areas, then you break down parts of the budget. You would break down and put into a differing chart of accounts for the different programs, as well as our tribal programs. At the end of each month, those are to be reconciled so that you come out at the end with a 0, or in the case of some revenue making entity, there would be, because we're a government, there won't be a profit, but there will be an excess of revenue over expenses. And that revenue then is dealt with as either being put aside or put back into that account. And there would be written entries to make all the movements of and record all the movements of the monies within each account. So that's the chart of accounts.
You want to do a
Oh,
second
yes.
question?
Yes, I would like to do a second question. What auditing experience do you possess?
Most of my auditing experience was years ago with the Comanches mostly. I worked with the CETA program and understood the ins and outs of that particular program because each one is different. Every area, Department of Labor is different than Indian Health Service is different than BIA on how you do reporting, what kinds of things that you want to make sure of so that the flow of information goes to a report. The audits that I did had to do with years before where the government had stated that the Comanches owed $100,000 back to them because there was no record of a proper report being made and submitted to them. I was hired then to come back and look through the books, look through every big piece of information that I could glean to see if I could find where and had they actually failed, If so, what could be done about it? What I was able to find, along with a legal team, was in the end the Comanches actually owed, and I believe that's what they paid, less than $5,000. It was a process that was long. It was tedious because we had to look through, or for my part, I had to look through not only the daily ledgers to make sure an entry was done properly, was put in the right category, was accounted for, and then made it all the way to the reports. And what I found was there were some things that, while they were accounted for, they didn't make it to the report. So the government allowed us then to go ahead and make a fresh report based on the information, and that's how we were able to find all those things that were properly expended, properly recorded. They just didn't make it to the report. Once we did that, then the government came back and said, all right, you owe less than $5,000. And I believe the final adjudication on that was they simply took it out of the next year's budget. Other than that, as treasurer for at that time KBC, I had occasion to have to look through some of the programs because there were vendors who called me and said, we haven't been paid. So I'd have to go back, look at the program, look at its books, sit down with the financial people and ask them for specific information, judge that information. Did they actually receive a bill? Was that bill properly paid? Was the check canceled? In other words, what did the company actually receive the money? And then if they didn't and everything was proper, we paid them. If we found the information, then I reported back to the company and showed them that yes, indeed, they had been paid, and the error was in their bookkeeping system, not ours. This was with several programs. I think if I remember correctly, there was very little report problems with reporting with the different funding agencies as far as anything having to be actually audited outside our regular audits. And so that's, and I've had occasion to do other audits that were, and all of them in essence were not as detailed as the one I had to do for the Comanches. But yes, I do have auditing experience.
Okay, Mr. Carter, I have to check on something here. Just a moment, please.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Carter, were you or were you not an internal auditor hired to do this work for the organization that you just?
Yes. It was under a contract basis.
Okay. We're going to have to refer to your resume at some point. Do we want to do it now or at the end of
Yes.
the questions? Okay.
We would like to know, is that stated on your resume?
I don't think so, because it was such a long time ago.
Now, we do have 78 to 79 for a little less than a year that you were employed as the career developer for the Comanche Tribe CETA program.
Yes.
Is that in the area time frame that you?
No,
did
this
such-
was should have been around 1982 to 84, somewhere in there.
Okay, you see self-employed as a consultant.
Yes.
That's not stated really.
No,
What
I
type of
didn't.
consultant you were.
Yeah, because I was doing so many different things, I just didn't put that one in there.
All right. Then, next, we'll move on. And,
Thank you, Mr. Carter.
You're welcome. Thank you.
okay, and, Ben,
morning, Mr. Carter. I just have one question at this time. And, what qualifications do you feel you possess as treasurer of the Kiowa tribe?
The qualifications that I possess, number one, are based on years of bookkeeping experience, all the way to a junior accountant to, and within that, I've done a lot of budget work, a lot of course, I've done from the initial entries all the way to reports for different government entities. I've had to deal with contracting officers within several entities. I've had to make many budget adjustments. I've had to, within the scope of those jobs, as well as treasurer for the Kiowa tribe, I've had to do a lot of reading and research as far as the laws under supporting the grants, contracts that we're under, because again, within that you find your answers as to how you make motions, how you make movements of money, how you change scopes of work, those kinds of things. You have to present those things then to the contracting officer, and you have to base them. It can't be based on your opinion or what you feel. It has to be based on what the law says. That's helped me a great deal to do many things, to again deal with vendors, deal with the public, and answer questions because we had people coming in all the time who had asked me different things about our different programs here at the tribe, and because I did a lot of reading, a lot of study, I could answer and defend just about anything that we were doing because it all had to stay within law. And that was the first thing that was I had to point out to many people. You have to have a reason why you do these things. You can't just do them simply because you want to or because you think it's a good idea. You have to have the ability legally to move money, to move assets, to use and utilize a certain program to do certain things, because once you go beyond that, you're getting into problems with being on the side of illegality, even though it's a good idea. Even though, oh, hey, we'd really like to do that. Well, yes, we'd really like to do that. However, there is a legal way to do that, or something that says we can't. Not because we don't want to, not because we're bad people, but we don't have a legal way to accomplish what someone's asking us to do. The other thing is, again, I do have some college accounting. I was trained by a CPA when I first became a bookkeeper for the Comanches. I was trained by their treasurer at the time. He was CPA, Frank Overly, and an assistant of his. And I wish I remembered his name because he's the one who taught me just about everything that I've based and have grown from. Also, I believe, and again, these are qualifications that you can't put on paper, I don't think necessarily, but the qualifications to me for being in government work on this level, and this to me is high level. It's not something, it's not bookkeeping, it's not simply sitting there. It is getting in the middle of lots of problems, lots of questions, lots of things that need to be solved. To me, you have to have a mind, and a good one. You have to have a heart for the people. You have to have a good work ethic. And you have to have the internal stamina to make a decision when a decision has to be made. And I believe I have all those. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Carter. I'm going to go ahead and ask the second question. And then we'll go. I do have no question for you. And I know you mentioned, so this is what educational background do you feel that you possess, which could include any training, certified training, or any other you might possess?
Okay, I do have some college training. Again, once I got into the real world, it didn't help at all because it just doesn't look the same. I think that's the way with a lot of folks who are highly trained and trained well in college. But the reality, once you get out into the world, is it doesn't look anything like what we studied. It just doesn't. So I did, it's been so long that I don't really have an actual listing, and because there were so many, I've had many workshops that were much closer because I understood the processes. They were much closer and helped me a great deal more. Once I learned what I was doing and once I practiced some, then when I would go to, I believe I went to the 638 workshop, which back years ago was a whole week long. I've been to several seminars as well as trainings for taxes, for accounting, for especially, of course, because we're there, government fund accounting. I've also actually did taxes for H&R Block for 1 year. For I think it lasted a couple of 3 months until April 15th, and they didn't need us anymore. I've done a lot of vital work for one of the educational, the one in Lawton Education Centers, where we did people's taxes on a personal basis. So that helped me, again, deal with things as far as talking to people, getting answers to questions, also just all the experiences. And again, I look at when I was treasurer before, it was brand new to me. I didn't know what I was getting into at the time because I saw it from the outside. And when I got in there, it was wow, because there were so many things happening, so many areas, and of course we all know this, and so many things, questions that needed to be answered, that the whole idea was then simply to get your feet wet, again, make decisions based on as much information as you could glean. And I think that's one of the things I got from college more than anything was how to do research, how to look for answers, and how to judge information once you get it. Because again, you have to have good information, but many times you have to make a decision based on incomplete information. That's where the intestinal fortitude to make a decision and to go with it comes into hand. Always bearing in mind, number one, you want to remain legal, and other than that, you want to make sure it's a decision that will help the people, because ultimately that's what we're all here for, is to help our people.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Dave, are you finished? I'm sorry, Ben.
Yes, I'm finished.
All right, very good. Dave, your question,
Mr.
please.
Carter, I just have one question. Would there be anything that would prevent you from being bought?
No, sir.
All right, so we'll move to, thank you, Dave. Thank you, Mr. Carter. We'll move to Ron.
Good afternoon. Known you for a long time.
Oh,
Visiting with you. Mr. Carter, I've only got a couple of questions here I wanted to ask you, and we can take it very long. The first question I would like to ask, would there be anything that would prevent you from passing a background check?
No.
Okay. That's fair enough. Second question is, do you currently have any knowledge of how payroll was currently being handled by the Kiowa Tribes Financial Office?
no, I don't know. No, I don't.
Okay. So you don't have any current knowledge of how the payroll system works then, right?
Not the one we're using now. No, I sure don't.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Mr.
Appreciate
Carter.
it.
Our next representative is Anita Onko Johnson, and she's from the Red River District.
Good afternoon, Mr. Carter.
Good afternoon, Nita. Nice to see you.
In reviewing your resume, I noticed that in your term of office as treasurer for the Kiowa tribe, your term of office was from November 2004 through March 2006.
Mm-hmm.
So I was wondering why the odd term of office?
The beginning was the treasurer before me resigned. So in order to fill that office, they had an election, and I ran for office and won. At the end of it, I along with 4 of my colleagues were recalled, and the recall was successful, and so therefore my career ended.
Okay, you were finishing a 2-year term
Mhm.
for somebody's resignation.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you clear with that, Anita?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rhonda, you're next, I'm sorry.
I got lost. Thank you. Rhonda's District 4? 2, excuse me, the Carnegie District. Rhonda Ahady.
Good afternoon, Mr. Carter.
Good afternoon, Rhonda.
My first question is, what is your idea or concept of serving as treasurer for the Kiowa tribe?
After having looked over what the new Constitution says, I sense that it is not greatly different from when I was elected. There are some very major differences. However, the responsibility and the authority that go with the office remain. You're responsible for all the assets of the Kiowas, of the Kiowa tribe. You're responsible for every expense of the Kiowa tribe. That is a huge responsibility because you're watching everything as a treasurer, from the smallest thing to the largest. You're watching furniture being bought as well as land. You're looking to make sure that everything is accounted for properly, everything is budgeted for properly, all adjustments are made legally, everything is being reported to every agency that is required, all the funding agencies as well as the Internal Revenue Service. You answer many questions from many areas. Some were from governmental investigations. During my tenure, I talked to the FBI. I talked to Justice Department people as well as the Internal Revenue Service. And in all that, you're representing the tribe. You're representing 12,000 to 13,000 people. You're the face that people see when they're asking financial questions. So you have to maintain a open as well as an honest rapport with these folks. And that to me is always important, because that does not stop. It is 24/7. Some of the work becomes tedious because you have lots and lots and lots of reading to do. I simply took it upon myself. I learned years ago to read and read and read because that helps everything that faces actually even a bookkeeper and an accountant. It never made sense to me to work on a contract and just simply do the books and never read what does that contract say. And then go beyond that, and what does the law that produced that contract say? Because again, that helps you when the director is wanting to make an adjustment, and they don't understand sometimes that there is a block or that there is a way to do what they want done. I think within all that, then you begin to solve problems because that's your main job, really, is to solve people's problems, to show them how they can accomplish what it is they're wanting to, and how we can better our people, it all begins with someone else, but it all comes through the treasurer's office. Because again, there's so many things that have to be looked out for, there's so many decisions that have to be made, and you have to make sure people have all the information that they need to make a good decision, a sound decision. And that means knowing lots of things about lots of different areas. Now, I particularly enjoy all that. I've always loved being able to help people and solve problems. When I was, these past few years since I retired, I have spent a lot of volunteer time with the church, as well as with wellness and diabetes programs in Lawton and Anadarko. And a lot of that is helping people solve problems. Help in those issues, in those areas, was health. Some were financial, and it's been a great joy. So I welcome again the challenge and the opportunity to go back into problem solving for our people.
Thank you for that answer. My second question is, and I've got a couple of sub-questions that are tied in with the main question.
Okay.
And after you answer this question, then I may go back to sub-questions, depending on how you answer.
Okay.
How closely will you work with the legislative branch?
I believe we will have a close relationship because, again, your job is to deal with budgeting and funding. My job will be to advise as well as to help you, again, solve problems. How do we go and accomplish this particular program or this particular area? How are we going to be successful? And how do we bring funds to that area properly and make that a continuing, how do we make that funding continue? If it's a continuing process, then it needs continual funding. And that will be the area, mostly the areas that I'll be wanting to help with and be available for. Those are the kinds of things and those are the kinds of problems that I see any government faces, every government faces, is they want to accomplish certain things. Okay, how do we do this? And it can't be on a one-time basis because governments don't stop being governments. So I think that we will be working very closely together.
Okay, if the legislature asks for information from your office, will you comply?
Absolutely.
What would you do if the chairman instructs you to refuse to provide information to the legislature?
I would ask for the law that backs that up, if there is one. And this is why what I mean. There were people who under our former constitution, asked for information from a certain program. I gave them budgetary information. What they wanted to know is the individual expenditures, and I had to tell them, no, you can't have that because that violates confidentiality, and I won't do that. I won't violate law, ever. Period.
Okay, this is kind of along the same line. If the legislature passes a resolution requiring you to provide information to the legislature, will you follow the chairman's instructions or will you follow the resolution?
I will follow the law.
That's fine.
Thank you very much. Mr. Carter, what are the three components of a typical financial statement and how are they linked and which one do you consider the most important?
On a financial statement, there are the accounts. What are they? There are the budgeted amounts. There is how much is expended, how much remains, and timing. Now, all of those are important. Again, with those areas where there are in the non-funding, non-government world, we would call a profit. Within a government, you can't have a profit, so there would be excess revenue over expenditures, or you would have again an over expenditure, and that's what the monthly statement will tell us and is supposed to tell us. Now, among those, for me, the most important is expenditure. The most important for me is the expenditure, and again, because it touches everything. How much are we
I'm
spending?
sorry.
Expenditure?
The expenditure?
Yes. And here's what I feel. You measure everything by what you're expending in a government in funding accounting. The expenditure is extremely important because it is based on time. You have a 12-month year. Typically, you have a 12-month year, and what you do is you have so much, that 12 months to expend that money. What happens if you don't expend all the money is, in many cases, they take the money and go, okay, you no longer, if it's a grant, they take that money away from you, you don't get it, and then they take even the matching amount from the next year's grant, if it's a multi-year grant. So you have to watch your expenditures. The other side is indirect costs are based on your expenditures. The rate is based on what you expend in different areas. The only area that I believe does not move indirect cost is if you buy assets or pay personnel. Everything else subjects that rate to change. Now, with the expenditure, again, you want to make sure all your directors are expending their funds in a timely manner so that if a budget adjustment needs to be made, it's made on time. I've run into too many situations where a director did not understand this. And I even had one thought they were saving money. I'm just great because I'm saving money. Well, they were as a grant. They're not going to get anything more. In fact, they're going to get less, not only this year, but the following year. So you have to understand that process. And for me, expenditures, because unless I have a hand in forming that budget, which with most cases I may speak into that and make suggestions, but it's going to be somebody else's final decision, then my thing after that, or my area where I would have the most influence and the most to do with that grant program, whatever it is what are you expending? And beyond that, then, are you expending properly? I had an occasion one time where somebody actually ordered and had
I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut into your answer, Mr. Carter, but perhaps you did not understand my question.
Okay.
So let me rephrase my question so that perhaps it's easier for you to understand. And I apologize. I do not wish to interrupt you, but what I am asking are, what are the 3 financial statements and how are they linked, and what do you consider the most important?
Oh, I'm sorry. It would be the income statement, the balance sheet, and oh my goodness, all my training just went out the window. What is the third one? Assets. See, assets.
All right, so is that your answer?
Yes, that's my answer. I'll have to go with that.
Can you tell me how they are linked? And
Okay.
which one do you think is the most important
Okay.
financial statement in your opinion?
Okay. They're linked in that the revenue statement affects the balance sheet. The balance sheet is simply a view of your assets and your liabilities, what we own, what we owe. The income statement then is what we've done over a period of time. How much did we spend? How much did we receive? That's how they're linked, because the income statement then affects the balance sheet on a monthly basis. As to importance, they each have great importance. But I would have to say, if I had to choose something that I wanted to know, I would have to choose the income statement.
So on a whole, with those 3 financial statements, and the last one, you could not tell us the name of it, but how would you explain that and how they all fit together to
Okay.
us? Can you explain that?
Yes.
Based on the fact that you're not
Yeah.
really naming the third statement.
No, I'm not.
And if you
And it
choose
just-
not to answer,
yeah.
that's fine.
No. When somebody tells me, I'm going to go, oh my God. Again, they're extremely important. And how I would go about explaining to someone. Again, the income statement is a monthly record of what we've done, how we've spent, what we've brought in or earned. The balance sheet, then it affects the balance sheet, because then the balance sheet, we're either adding assets, we're paying off liabilities, and it will show the adjustments again on a monthly basis. The importance of these things is to show where we stand, what was spent. As on the income side or the income statement, then it will show were things spent properly. Because again, to all this, then there are budgets attached. What are we doing according to the budget? In most cases, of course, as a government, that's what we're most concerned with. Also, what kind of revenues over expenses do we have? Because that's going to affect our future. What are we going to be able to spend next month, next year, over a number of years? The balance sheet then shows what assets we have, what liabilities we have, and helps us to understand how strong we are financially, because we always want to have more assets than we do liabilities. Always. That's the healthiest way to be. At times it won't be that way if we're borrowing money, if we're doing certain things. There will be, and the balance sheet will show that. But again, if you come up on a negative side, then you want to be able to explain, and as well, all of that has connections to audit, because those are the things that an auditor is going to look at. Okay, here's what the balance sheet looks like. It looks good. I have a question about this. Something doesn't look right here. Then you trace it back to the income statements. Were things recorded properly? Was money spent properly? Then you look at the actual initial entries if there is a problem. And is it a legal problem? Or is it simply a bookkeeping mistake? Is money missing? Are assets missing? We want to know that immediately.
Is that your answer?
Yes.
Okay, so just so you know, the third statement is a cash flow statement.
Okay. Thank you.
And to also let you know and to let our audience know that by themselves, each financial statement only provides a portion of the story of a company's financial condition. Together, they provide a more complete picture. Also, when you say, you prepare balance sheets, income statements, are you saying that an auditor does not do this for the company?
No.
Okay,
They do not.
so because these statements can be prepared in a time frame, a quarterly statement, a year-to-date statement,
Right.
The big picture also. But are you saying as a bookkeeper here or as your term of treasurer, you prepared these type of statements for the tribe here? Did you do that?
No, we had a financial office that did that.
Okay, all right, thank you. To go on, thank you for your answer.
You're welcome.
I don't know how long it's been since you've been in the accounting field, but thank
Been a
you for
while.
your answer. The second question I would like to ask you, are you familiar with the current financial accounting software being used by the tribe? And also, what Windows operating system are you most comfortable with? And what programs under that system are you most proficient with? So
Okay.
is that too much of a question?
No.
Because
No.
I could break it down
No.
as firstly, what is the current financial accounting software being?
I have no idea.
So you feel confident you could step into this position and adjust to the operating software?
Absolutely.
All right. So under the Windows operating system, which program are you which operating system are you most comfortable with? And do you understand that question?
Yes. Probably Windows 10 is the one I'm most familiar with. As far as comfort, I've used a number of them, and of course they change every time they change a system. It takes a while to get used to the new system, but it doesn't take that long. As far as preference, whatever the tribe has, that's what I would adapt to.
All right. And which program under that 2010 Windows operating system, what programs are you proficient with?
I'm proficient in Word. I am proficient in graphics. And that's basically it.
Okay, so are you aware that Excel is used by all over in the current business world?
Yes.
In accounting more than any other program.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so you're aware of that, but you don't have a proficiency that you can say you are
Not yet.
familiar with. Okay, and so the operating system of currently being used by the tribe is the MIP. ABLA MIP is the integrated suite that offers accounting, procurement, budgeting, payroll, human resources, timekeeping, asset management, grant management are all functions under that system.
Okay.
So it's non-profit accounting, and it does use fund accounting, which it sounds like you're familiar with that to some point. So anything to add with me ending this question?
Okay. When I was doing bookkeeping, they were just starting to use computer software. So I was never trained in computer software to do the daily bookkeeping. As treasurer, I'm not going to be doing the daily bookkeeping. We have a financial office that does that. What I will be reading are the reports that come off of that. Now, I will familiarize myself with that software, and it won't take me long to be able to build a proficiency in it. I see that as necessary. However, I still won't be doing the daily grind. That's not my job as treasurer. My job as treasurer is to oversee and to make sure that those folks do things properly, and not just from the bookkeeping standpoint, but from a directorship, from a management aspect. That's what the treasurer's job is to be doing, not to be doing the daily entries, anything like that. And as far as budgets, I will direct people how I want the budgets to look when they come to me.
So, is that your answer?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so let me expound on this question a little bit, if you don't mind. When you answered the educational background question from Mr. Ben Wolf over here, I picked up that you did not think education is very important, that education never took you to the picture of on-the-job training, you might say. So it didn't seem very important, but in this day and age, we are in the 21st century. And computers, and it sounds like you have some experience in that, are very important to the overall picture.
Mhm.
How could you possibly know if you're not doing or being able to do the entries, or how would you go about knowing if it's right, especially with a software system in place also?
Again, I don't do the daily things, the daily entries. That is not my job as treasurer. I can find out how to do those things because I can study software. I can become and will become proficient at that. And as far as the education question, education is extremely important. Extremely important. What I was telling Mr. Wolf is I do not have a strong educational background beyond just a little bit of accounting. What happened was when I became a bookkeeper, then I was taught the very rudiments of bookkeeping, which again looked nothing like what we were being taught because it wasn't real world. Once you get out into the real world, then you begin to understand what it was they were trying to teach you, but it doesn't look the same. That was my only comment. I didn't denigrate education, and I would not denigrate education. However, as far as being able to learn, I can learn whatever I need to learn. But I will say this again, as treasurer, my job is not to do the daily grind. My job is to assess that everything is right, everything is accounted for. And if I need to learn every bit of the software, I will learn it because I have that ability.
All right, and I did not mean to imply that you did with the education.
I appreciate that.
But I do see on your resume that you had accounting 9 hours.
Yes.
So can you tell me basically what those accounting courses are? Or do you have in your possession your education, what you studied in, was that transcript at Cameron University?
I can get it
Okay,
to
so
everyone.
do you remember any
Yes.
of those classes that?
Oh, yes.
So-
The first 2 classes were basic accounting, just what anyone
That's
who
correct.
wants. The second or the third one was managerial accounting, which was a course that in essence showed
I'm
as a
aware of
manager,
the course.
yeah, as a manager, how do you read statements? How do you assess
All right.
how things are going?
So that was your 9 hours.
Mhm.
Okay, and how did you fare on those classes?
In the 2 basic ones, I made C's. In the managerial accounting, I believe I made an A.
All right, very good. I just want you to be aware that in the field of the business world today, that a bachelor's degree is required for entry level. A master's degree is desired by most employers for a position of treasurer. Other courses or areas of study are finance, economics, and business administration. So with that, I will move for my colleague here, Modena, District 7, Modena Waters, to again, if she wishes to place in the final round of questions, if she has another question that we might be interested in. Thank you, though, Mr. Carter.
Thank you, Renee.
Um, Somebody else was asking that. There's somebody else on the page. Okay. Okay. All right, the next question is, can you explain by definition what payroll is?
Payroll is taking individuals, their information, how many hours they worked, what rate are they paid, on what basis are they paid. Are they salaried? Are they hourly workers? You then get their number of hours. You take it times the rate, or you divide again with salaried people. You simply divide up into however many payments based on your payroll system, whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, bi-monthly. You then come to their gross pay, and out of that you would take FICA taxes, federal withholding tax, and if I remember correctly, right off the top of my head, Medicare, Medicaid taxes. You would also take state income taxes, and then any other deductions required by law or as a part of fringe benefits. As far as because there are people who are paying the state back, or are they owe money to someone who has a legal right to garnish their wages. You also have those people who are have custody issues, so you would be paying the state. And then any savings programs, 401ks, health benefit deductions, and you would arrive at their net pay for that time period. You would issue them a check, and of course record all of that, so that at the end of their employment or the end of the year, whichever comes first, you can report to the agencies. And you also during that time would pay IRS, the state, and the different entities the monies due them.
Thank you very much.
Dave, did you just have one question?
I just have one question.
Okay, Dan? Ron, are you
I
fine?
have no question.
Ms. Anita?
I didn't have this question before, but it kind of sparked to me as the questions were going on. And it has to do with the Section 4 powers under the executive powers in the executive session. Section 4, Item A. No expenditures shall be made unless included in an approved budget. And I don't know how that has been worded before, but I wanted to know how do you view that?
I view that as it's law. When there's an approved budget, then you can spend monies within the categories as well as the amounts. If you go outside of that, if I have a director that goes outside of that, if I have anyone who goes outside of that, I won't approve it, because that's improperly done. No one has the right to expend more than what's properly there, nor to spend money, to tribal money, for things that have not been approved. I had occasion for an example, I had occasion where a check was written and came across my desk for my signature. It had already been signed by counter signature. The piece of furniture in question was in the budget. However, it was $900 for a table. And I voided that check and refused to approve that expenditure. Not because they didn't have the right to spend that, but come on. Our people at that time were hurting, and we need a $900 table for a program that did not need that piece of furniture to operate. And when the director came to me, we sat down and I said, I'm sorry, I understand it's well within your right to do this, but I can't approve it because there is a moral issue here. It's not a legal issue, it's a moral issue. However, anytime anything came across my desk that was a legal issue, no, absolutely not. Or if I had a question, I would simply stick it in my desk and wait till I had opportunity to talk to someone and say, hey, this can't be done. Can't do it. So I'm voiding it.
Is it your understanding in my question that it includes all monies of the
Absolutely.
tribe,
Yes, ma'am.
even the government grants?
Yes, ma'am.
That's all.
Thank you.
Just one little short question, you can give me a short answer. I noticed that you have a lot of counseling experience on your resume.
Mhm.
Do you feel that that will help you in your job as a treasurer?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
In what
And
way?
has. Many times people come in, and during my tenure as treasurer, I probably spent the first month to 6 weeks with people coming into my office and screaming at me, which was fine. I felt that as an elected official, they had a right to do that. I felt that they needed to vent because we did have some long-standing problems at that time. And I was aware of only part of them and not in great detail, and I was becoming well aware after a while of the more detail. Many times they were either given very short answers, or they weren't given the time to vent, or they could not find the person they needed to and wanted to talk to. So I spent my time simply listening to them, and only on a couple of occasions did I have to calm them down a little bit because they were starting to cuss a little too much, and standing up to take me outside, which no, that's not going to happen. So I just had to gently, calm them down. After a while, then it became a process of listening, hearing what the person is saying. Because many times the people who came to see me didn't really want me to do anything but listen and let them vent. Then there were those who had a question, and they were looking for an answer. They wanted to hear, and sometimes it was they had asked the question, hadn't got a satisfactory answer. They wanted a further explanation. So they talked to someone else, and so they came to me. And with many, I was able to calm them down, reassure them that we were doing everything we possibly could to fill the needs of the people. That it would take, unfortunately, some time. In some situations, I had to get with a director to find out, okay, what is going on? Do they qualify? In a couple of instances, they really didn't qualify for what they were asking for. Now, what was nice about it is I found out that they were qualified for other areas, and so we were able to help them. In some areas, though, however, they weren't qualified for anything. They had already received everything that we could possibly do for them. And so then the counseling skills really set about helping me, because then you have to gently tell someone and convince them that the answer is no. They don't want to hear that often. They just don't. And I understand that. And the counseling skills then helped me. It also helped me with working with the KBC, with working with vendors. Because again, you have to hear what they're truly saying. You have to be able to calm them to the point where they'll let you do some work, find out, is this valid? Do we really owe you? In the case of a vendor, with my colleagues then, we had issues over certain decisions that were going to be made, over certain issues that were being made. And so there was this point where you have to sit and talk with people and keep calm and understand where they're going with something, understand that you're going to have to turn some of that because they're headed in a wrong direction. They're headed in a direction that's either going to push us toward illegality, push us outside of our authority, which again, you cannot do. When somebody wants to go and take over a building and they're on the business committee, sorry, you can't allow that, especially if it's not on trust property. No, we're not going to do that. We can't, That's not good business. And so you're dealing with emotions many times. And so that's where the counseling skills really helps me, is to be able to calm someone down, to reassure them, yes, we're going to do everything we can.
All right, and before I say my final question, I'd like to go back to the first question that Miss Anita asked you, because I'm unsure if I understood you correctly. That question was, in reviewing your resume, she noticed that a term of office for treasurer, November 2004 through March 2006, and why the odd term. So I believe you answered, you began by being elected and finishing an unfinished term of somebody.
Yes.
Okay, so can you tell me that time frame, or was it this old?
What was that?
So that was from November. So that was your time frame. Okay, so
and I should have finished June of that year.
and could I ask you why you did not?
We were recalled.
Okay, so you were part of the recall. I didn't understand that.
I'm sorry.
Yes. I believe there was 4. You said
5 altogether.
5 altogether. Were you all recalled under the same?
Yes. Same charges.
The same charges there. And could you tell me what those charges were?
Yes, we were charged with interfering with the gaming contract.
In what capacity? And what year is this? In 2006, prior to the opening of the Duval Kiowa Casino.
Yes.
So you were charged with interfering in the gaming contract. And could you tell me, was it told to you how you interfered with the gaming contract?
Yes, we all received a copy
And
of the charges.
I've never heard those charges.
I used to have a copy.
Can you
think
just
someone.
briefly-
Yes, we were having contract negotiations. As KBC, it was our right to negotiate those contracts. The contracting company and the developers were not forthcoming with certain documents that we kept asking for. We asked and we asked and we asked, and they would not give us the chart. I'm sorry, I can't even remember what they called them at that time. I'm sure that it's still the same term
The
today.
document you mean that you were asking for? Okay.
And finally, it came down to we're not going to go any further with this if we don't see the documents, because how in the world you're asking us to make a decision on documents that we are not seeing? You'd have to be a fool to do something that huge without looking at documents.
So was KCOA in place at that time?
They
Which
were.
is the Kiowa Casino Operating
Yeah.
Authority.
I believe they were being formed. They were meeting, but it wasn't. If I recall, it wasn't a full board.
Okay, and then can you tell me who were the members who were charged with recall along with yourself?
There was the late George Dancall, Margie Pence, she was secretary. Mr. Dancall was vice chairman. Let's see, I was treasurer. And Mr. Jimmy Horse, who was a member. Is that fine? Mrs. Brown, I'm sorry, she was a member also. The late Mrs. Brown.
It was almost the executive branch.
Okay, so were there other members on there that were not recalled?
Yes.
And whom? I'm sorry, I'm not aware. I've heard
Okay.
different administrations, but it kind of gets mixed up in
Oh, yeah.
when they were in office, when they weren't.
You know, we want to be careful on who you names. I'm really
These
clear.
are public officials.
But,
Mr. Jewell, do you have a problem with
No,
answering
no.
that question?
no, I know he doesn't. In fact, we talked quite a bit on that.
Yeah.
Because I personally thought.
Then I will withdraw my question.
Okay.
Thank you very
All
much. All right, so I would like to make a little statement before I ask the final question. And this is regarding the new Constitution. The new Constitution was voted on. If that concludes all questions, excuse me, before this table and the final question. Okay, so the new Constitution was voted on in April 17th, 2017. It was then approved by the BIA on May 5th, 2018. 17, excuse me, I have a typo there. It passed overwhelmingly by a vote of 549 yes votes to 258 no votes. This was a 68% approval by the tribe. Some tribal members do not believe that the old Constitution was a document given to all tribes by the BIA and that it was modified by our ancestors. Nor do they believe or understand that there are only 17 tribes left that let the BIA run their courts through the CFR court system. Most tribes have established their own tribal court system, which is what our new Constitution does. The wheels of progress have been slow under the old Constitution. We know that many have been harmed by the recalls in that time frame up until 2017. So we know this. The new Constitution is a separation of powers. It includes the executive, the legislative, the judicial branches, but it also does include the KIC branch, and that each branch has a duty of checks and balances. You have been openly critical of the new Constitution. So my final question to you, Mr. Carter, is how can the legislative branch be assured and convinced by you that you will honor this new Constitution and will not keep reverting back to the old Constitution? That is my final question to you, please.
I appreciate the question. I truly do. Yes, it is no secret, nor would I want it to be, that I was not in favor of this Constitution. And not because of the Constitution so much itself as much as the process that was used. Okay? Just to me, it just didn't ring right, didn't feel right. I believe the old Constitution had a way to be changed, and I understand it would take a long time to change it, but I wasn't so sure that was still not the better way to go. However, in getting to your question, I believe in the rule of law. I believe that the one that I follow says that you will obey the law that is present. As you stated, this Constitution was passed. It is a reality. I would be remiss if I didn't say that at one time I was not in favor of gaming. I'm still not in favor of it. However, it's a reality. It is a reality, and I'm okay with that. This Constitution is a reality. And I don't know if we still do an oath, but when I raised my right hand to become treasurer of the tribe, I swore an oath to uphold that Constitution. If I do so now to uphold this one, I'm going to swear my oath, and I will uphold it because it is present law. Now, I don't have to like it, but it's there. It's there, and I will follow it. I will follow it, as I followed the old Constitution. It is what is in existence now, and I'm perfectly fine with that.
Is that the end?
I think so.
Thank you very much, Mr. Carter. We will now recess to an executive session. I don't expect it to be long, possibly 15 minutes. Then we will return for a vote on your confirmation. All votes are public. You can wait here and see what it is. I believe we have Facebook Live where you could also view that vote. But at that point, I would ask the public to come back in.
Okay.
And it's certainly up to you. I would like to thank you personally.
I will wait.
That
I will wait.
you came. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you today. Thank you.
And we will now recess for the executive session. And that time is 2:35, I believe. So we do have chairs in the hallway there. It shouldn't take long from now. Thank you. I'm not sure if the chairman. Oh. Reconvene at 3:10, and from there, the executive session is reconvening, and we're going to go to what was the second part of new business, and and we have a legislative order in your packet, everybody. Rhonda, can you read what that legislative order states?
It is Legislative Order 2018-003 to confirmation of appointment, subject a legislative order to confirm appointment of the Kiowa Treasurer George D. Carter. Whereas on April 17, 2017, the voter of the Kiowa tribe approved a new constitution, and whereas the Constitution calls for the chairman to nominate a candidate for treasurer, subject to confirmation by the legislature, and whereas Article 4, Section 6C of the Constitution calls for the legislature to use a legislative order to confirm or deny nominations by the chairman, and whereas the chairman has nominated George D. Carter to be treasurer for the tribe, and whereas the legislature has conducted a public confirmation hearing to consider the nomination of Mr. Carter as treasurer of the tribe. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the legislature, well, I can't say that one yet.
Yes.
Okay.
So, can somebody place a motion on the table, or would you like me to make the motion? Does the legislature confirm Mr. Carter as treasurer of the tribe? Do I have a second? Thank you, Ben. Did you get that, Rhonda?
Alrighty, does the legislature confirm Mr. George Carter?
Mr. George?
Mr. George Carter as treasurer of the Kiowa tribe. Okay, I got it. And it's motion
Yes.
and seconded by Ben.
And this is a legislative order, KLO CY 218-003. This will be. Call for the vote, Rhonda.
Renee Plata,
No.
Rhonda Ahady, yes. Ron Kulop,
Yes.
Dave Givasaddle,
Yes.
Anita Uncle Johnson,
No.
Modena Waters,
Yes.
Ben Wolf.
No.
4 yes, 3 no, no abstentions, no absences. Motion carries.
All right. So be it. Congratulations, Mr. Carter. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second? Thank you, Dave. Motion carries. We are adjourned at 3:15. Thank you all. Thank you for coming.